Bear with. Wasn't that cartoon great? Yes. That's it. I mean, we can all go home now. Because that is Daniel chapter 3. I'm going to pray. Oh, no, I'm not. Phones are great, aren't they? They're really great, but except when they don't work. Let's pray. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. Amen. Amen. Hey, that wasn't very original, was it, that prayer? Where is it? It's what Daniel prayed in chapter 2 before he was given that amazing revelation. Well, this is what we're doing, just to remind you, and thank you, David. This is, we're looking at the book of Daniel, and so far we had an introduction with David Paulson to the whole thing, and then we did chapter 1, which we thought was to do with integrity. And when Daniel and the others are brought to Babylon, and they're given all these new names, made to change their names, and they might have to change their diet and all that kind of thing, and their integrity was such, they didn't do it. But they put up with the new situation. And then in chapter 2, we looked at Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the astrologer's failure to interpret it. This is what Daniel did, how Daniel did with it. And we decided that showed that God is greater than the forces of culture. And I listened to that message of Daniel's again, and it was really good. It was really good. It really spoke to me. And so we come to chapter 3, and you know what it's about because we saw the cartoon. And the image set up, and then the fiery furnace, and these three guys, these three friends of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I don't know what that American version, it kept saying about Abednego. It's not Abednego, it's Abednego. It's bad enough getting the name changed without getting them actually spelt wrong. There we are. And I believe that it's more to do today with the exclusivity of our God and the fact that we don't go alone. He goes with us. These are not popular thoughts in some ways, but they are God's thoughts. Just to show you the next picture, in the week, next slide, David, is this is what we're going to be looking at in the week. So just those are questions in the week for us all to look at. I'm not going to talk about it today. I'm not giving you the answers in advance and all that kind of stuff. But there we are. Just to sort of recap. So these are, you have to do it one at a time now. This is the story of chapter 3. Bink. Nebuchadnezzar has a statue made, not actually necessarily of himself, by the way. A lot of people think, oh, he made a statue of himself, but it doesn't say that. It's just a statue that he wants people to worship. Next one, Bink. He announces via a herald that everyone's got to worship it. But Daniel's friends refuse to do that. It's good, isn't it? No, I don't know. It's just magic, isn't it? And then this group of local astrologers, they rat on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They inform on them. And Nebuchadnezzar gives them one more chance after he's flying into a rage. I don't know what's what. And he threatens the blazing furnace. Is there another one, Dave? And they say, if we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand.
What happened to Daniel in all this?
He's not mentioned, is he? That's very interesting. Daniel is not mentioned in all this, but his friends are there. You're quite right. He's busy writing it up. Anyway, just to say that I don't want to just concentrate on the cartoon version. I won't read the whole of chapter 3, but just the various bits. This is the first 6 verses. King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide. Yeah, wow, exactly. And set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he sent messengers to the princes, prefects, governors, advisors, councillors, judges, magistrates, and all the provincial officials to come to the dedication of the statue he had set up. When all these officials had arrived and were standing before the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, a herald shouted out, "People of all races and nations and languages, listen to the king's command. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other instruments, bow to the ground to worship King Nebuchadnezzar's gold statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." And then these astrologers rat on Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego because obviously they don't bow down to this statue that he has set up, that Nebuchadnezzar set up. And Nebuchadnezzar gives them one more chance. And then in 16 to 18, it says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if he doesn't," and this is a key verse, "your majesty can be sure that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you've set up." Then comes the furnace, and they're lobbed into it. And then at the end, Nebuchadnezzar looks into the side window of this thing, having chucked them in at the front. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire. They aren't even hurt by the flames, and the 4th looks like a divine being." And Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace. Don't forget, the people who chucked them in are all affected by the fire as soon as they tried to get anywhere near it, and they were killed. And Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. The princes, prefects, governors, and advisors crowded around them, and they saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their heads was singed, and their clothing was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. You know how impossible that is. You've ever been near a bonfire or anything like that, you know you smell the stuff for the rest of the day. David Pawson said, these first few chapters are chapters of miracles. And this is one of them. That's true. Right, let's see if we just remind ourselves of this chapter. Next picture. Okay, this is to help you. These are like pictures to remind you what happens. So, first picture tells us what? So Nebuchadnezzar puts up a statue. Second picture. What sort of car is it? What model? Herald. Gotcha. This is my little joke, sorry. No, it's a Herald. So what does the Herald do? Yeah, obviously nothing to do with that car. Herald being someone who goes out and says, you've got to fall down by the statue because the boss says so. Third picture? That's Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego saying, no, no, no. Loads of us in the choir know about that. Okay, and signs of the Zodiac, so they were like, what did they do? They grassed him up. Yeah. This guy flew into a rage. That's right. Sorry? He does look rather hot, doesn't he? He didn't have a tie, by the way. Then this one shows us what? Chucks him into the fiery furnace. And then I put this, even if, what does that mean? Yeah. Our God can save us out of this situation. And even if he doesn't, tough. We're not going to worship your statue, however impressive you think it is. I've got a question. Next PowerPoint. Sorry, that is it. So that is to show you you're all very clever people. You got all that right. Okay. How controversial are you? How controversial are you? An Anglican vicar, minister, has had his bank account closed after raising concerns. This is this week, okay? Last week. Raising concerns over Yorkshire Building Society's promotion of transgenderism. The Reverend Richard Fothergill, who leads the filling station network, do you know that network is a network that Philip Romilly has attended, a network of churches that believe in the importance of the Holy Spirit. And it's a group that meets locally. And this guy attends this filling station network, and he sent an online message to the Yorkshire Building Society in response to a request for feedback. They asked him for his feedback on their services. And he said, he's 62 years old, he's a youngster. And he said, I've had an account for 17 years. And he complained that the company shouldn't be promoting a transgender ideology. 4 days later, he received a letter stating his account will be closed. Speaking to the Times, he said, they are a financial house. They don't need to do social engineering. I think they should concentrate their efforts on managing money instead of promoting LGBT ideology. I know cancel culture exists, and this is my first-hand experience of it. I wouldn't want this bullying to happen to anybody else. And pray for this guy. It's an ongoing debate. I haven't found out today how it's going on, but there's a lot of people, Christians especially, up in arms about how he's being treated. Yeah, well, you can pray for him if you want. Skip me that. That's not the same thing.
No, not the same.
Next thing. The New Life Church community were given no warning or explanation when, this is in Belarus, right? When a bulldozer came on the 20th of June and started destroying their church building. Standing outside the ruined church in Minsk, Belarus, Pastor Goncharenko described the destruction as flagrant lawlessness. And he added, God sees everything. He sees today our suffering, our grief, our pain. The bulldozing came after years of oppression, from the authorities. In February 2021, the community was forcibly expelled from the church by 30 police and court bailiffs, who used an angle grinder to cut the lock on the door. The incident was recorded on video, and the church leaders believe it was because they had posted a video online protesting against regime, election fraud and violence. We had just one day to remove our property before the eviction, and we were not allowed to take many things that belonged to the church and could be used in another building, Pastor Goncharenko said. The flames that engulfed Ritika's home, this is another situation, is part of the ethno-religious violence that began on the 3rd of May, we'll talk about this year, continues to envelop Manipur in India. As of the 25th of June, more than 50,000 Christians from the Kukutsu Mizo tribe and Meitei communities have been displaced. Around 400 churches have been burnt and destroyed, more than 250 villages have been burnt, and 120 people from all sides of the conflict have been confirmed dead. Ritika is part of the majority Christian Kuki tribe, whose communities suffered most of the destruction for the Arambai, Tengoi and Meitei Leapun extremist groups. However, Christian converts from the majority Hindu Meitei community have also faced violence from the said radicals and have been forced to reconvert to their Hindu faith. Forced, right? And we know about this lady, Ritika. She gave birth on the run. She says, I could only think of my baby, so I escaped, shares Ritika. On the way, I had pains, and women who were with me helped me deliver my baby. The men prepared a bamboo bed on the mountain, and they were guarding us. After delivery, they carried me and my baby on the same bamboo cot because we could not stop moving. I can never forget this day. I never imagined it. But thanks be to God for the gift of life that he brought into the world, even in such a terrible situation. Ritika's mother-in-law adds, I forgive our persecutors because of them. We can see God's hand in our life. Ritika says this, I want my son to live and see how God can do great things in the future. She named her baby boy after the mountain where he was born in their local language. Though still in a perilous situation, sharing food, shelter and a few resources in the camp for internally displaced people, she's optimistic for her precious baby. I pray for my child because he came into the world at this time, but I want him to live and see how God can do great things in his future. I am in physical pain because of the fact that I had to run, but I don't blame any tribe or community. God has protected my baby and my life. We've got a clip about Iraq. It's interesting, isn't it? Because that's in Iraq, modern day Babylon. And those three girls struck me. They're like female versions of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. That group play for both Christian and Muslim audiences, sharing their faith through their music. Farid, who's 27, is a singer and also plays a daf, which is some kind of frame instrument. We might sing it there, I don't know. He says this, I want to keep on presenting music that surpasses the noise of war and destruction, wanting to deliver a message to the world. Music in general is the biggest drive for hope in the future. Music is a language of peace, of love. Language of peace, of love. It's grasped by all kinds of audiences. And the band feels that music is giving them renewed hope to stay in the country. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. And they're able to encourage young people with the message too. This land is the land of our forefathers, the land of our children's future, and Farid adds, our music makes people understand that we will remain in this land. It's interesting, right? Now, what a parallel. The key to this chapter we've already spotted. In chapter 3, verse 17 and 18 and 20 and 28. It's another PowerPoint slide here, David. Yeah. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand, they say to Neb. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. And then Nebuchadnezzar says that after all of this, and the miracle of them coming out of the blazing furnace, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. I was reading one commentary, and a guy called A.R. Millard says this: the faith of the few benefited many. There were only 3 of them, but it benefited many because they were obedient and their faith was such an example. So what about us? We don't have those situations, but our brothers and sisters across the world do all the time. We need to pray for each other to stand out. To stand out. It's tough because it's getting tougher and tougher, as we've just seen about that guy, that vicar type, who had his bank account closed. It's tough. And what's more, it's going to get tougher. That's the world we live in. Just turn to the person next to you and just pray for them. Pray for them to stand out, or each side of you, whatever. And Lord, we thank you that we have this example of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the way they stood out for you against all the powers that be. We want to pray now for each other. So let's just pray for each other now. We have just sung, and I will serve no foreign god or any other treasure. Lord, we're surrounded in our world by all sorts of things that want to grab our attention and would say, yeah, worship me, worship me. Whatever that other treasure is, Lord, whether it be money, fame, whatever it is, Lord, nothing, but nothing compares to you. And we will not serve them. We will not serve anything that is inferior to you. We thank you that you are our God and you will protect us. And even if we come across hard times, Lord, so be it. And as we go through life now, help us to have that same resolve that those three men had, that they will not serve inferior things or so-called gods. Lord, give us strength. Amen. I don't think Nebuchadnezzar's quite got it yet, you know. Because at the end of that chapter, he says, right, okay, that's great. That's obviously the right God then. One's the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So, right, everybody's got to worship that Lord God. You can't command people to worship. And he takes some more lessons from Nebuchadnezzar before he's brought low enough to realise that. That's the history of the church in this country, is that this geezer called Constantine decided that everybody was going to be Christian now, not Roman, not worshipping all these Roman gods. And so he said, right, you got to be Christian now. You can't. That's not how people become Christians. You can't force people to become Christians. And Nebuchadnezzar had to learn that lesson. And so is that a comment? Yeah, it's very good. Excellent stuff there. Well done, kids. Just for the video, that was not gunfire. Thank you all for listening.